quick disclaimer before we get into today's show. Any views expressed by myself or any guests of the Loop podcast doesn't necessarily represent us. Thank you very much for listening, and let's begin.
Welcome to the Loop podcast, not your typical theme park podcast. Please welcome your host, Jack Fletcher.
Main topic of today's podcast, I'm going to have a few opinions to put across about the future and the magic of Alton Towers. I think that's a topic that I quite like to chat about. I'm actually quite passionate about talking about that, so that's going to be the main feature of this podcast. So in recent news regarding Scarefest, back in June, Alton Towers revealed details for its annual Scarefest event for 2019, promising more spooks and frights for all the family. With a welcome return of Terror of the Towers, but with a complete re-theme. For 2019, Terror of the Towers returns, known as the Attic Terror of the Towers. Now, in the meantime, you're going to hear me say Terror of the Towers quite a few times, because that's how they listed it on when they revealed it. So I'm actually going to say Terror of the Towers quite some time coming up. So they've said this chilling new maze invites guests to venture into the attic to discover who is lurking there and what terrible crimes they are seeking to commit. The attic sees the revival of Alton Towers' signature scare maze, Terror of the Towers, which took a 1-year break in 2018. Now, when Alton Towers released this information, I was actually quite full of joy, because I thought last year's Scarefest was missing Terror of the Towers. Now, there's not a lot of people who'd say that, because they was waiting for Terror of the Towers to be taken off the Scarefest lineup. And I'm actually really, really happy about they brought it back. I mean, Terror of the Towers was known as What Lies Within, started in 2009, ran all the way through to 2017, with maybe a new route halfway in there, and then they started to completely take some of the scenes out and make that maze shorter. So it was at the end of 2017, we kind of knew that Terror of the Towers wasn't going to be coming back, because they'd started to remove certain sections of the maze, making it a little bit, I'm going to say it, shit. So I'm glad that it took a 1 year out, although I was missing it during Scarefest last year. But they've brought it back, and I can't wait to experience it. Obviously, it is only July. At the time of recording, it's the 10th of July, so not much details have been revealed as of yet, but that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks, or possibly the next few months, I should imagine. I will say, I think the location of this maze will be in the towers. The clue is in the title, isn't it? Terror of the Towers, the Attic. So I'll be keen to see what Alton Towers can do with this maze, and see if they can kind of revive the wow factor of Terror of the Towers. There will also be an all-new scare maze for families to enjoy, with Darkest Depth debuting in Mutiny Bay. Guests brave enough to experience will go on a ghostly adventure into pirate folklore to discover some of the legendary creatures of the deep. I mean, whilst the precise venue and location for this scare maze within Mutiny Bay is unconfirmed, the new logo that they released suggests a possible link to Sharkbait Reef by Sea Life. Therefore, could we see the new attraction located in the Sea Life Centre? That's a big possibility. I mean, looking at the logo that they released, it looks awfully similar to the Sharkbait Reef logo. So that's definitely sparked some rumours in terms of where the location of the new maze could be. We see the new attraction going in there, really. That's my opinion. I see the new attraction going inside of Sharkbait Reef. But going on to the welcoming this year will not be returning, which was located in the courtyard. So, with not too much information regarding Darkest Depth, more info to come as of when we get it, but could it be replacing the welcoming in the courtyard? Now, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people who probably don't know. There's a good possibility. I mean, I can see it going in there, because going on to a topic that I'm going to talk about as the main feature of this podcast would be is the magic of Alton Towers dead? I'm going to go into a few minor discussions around the areas of Alton Towers that have kind of fell into disrepair or are lacking that what it used to be. So there's a good possibility that we could see Darkest Depth in the courtyard. Going on to that, the welcoming, you heard that right, the welcoming will not be returning on this year's lineup. After 2-year stint at Alton Towers, they're not bringing it back. I think it's a fantastic decision. I've not really got a lot to say about that maze. That maze, the first year it opened, was okay. It didn't... I don't know, I think the first year it was kind of rubbish. I liked it because it was going to be themed off the new ride. You know, obviously it was themed around the new ride, which is Wicker Man. But for the price that we paid to get in there, I think that maze was at a price of £8 to enter. It wasn't that great. It came back last year, kind of a predecessor to Wicker Man opening, to keep it open. And then they've decided not to bring it back, which I think that's a fantastic decision. It opens up that space for a new attraction during Scarefest. If they don't utilise that space this year, they can certainly use it next year. So it definitely opens up that space, as that is one of the quietest areas of park since they got rid of the Pirates of Mutiny Bay show. So I think it definitely opens up that space for them to use it in the future. Who knows, we might see something different coming up. I know they did do a proposed steakhouse plan for that area of the park, but it was cut when Wicker Man opened, so maybe the budget just wasn't there. But more information on Darkest Depth and obviously where the location will be, whether it ties in with the welcoming in terms of the positioning, we're yet to see. So, as I keep saying, it is only July, so we will find out more as of when we get the information, and we'll reveal it in one of our future episodes on the Loop podcast. Also revealed, Alton Towers is promising less laughs and more screams for the Alton Towers dungeons during the spooky season of Scarefest, with even more spooks and surprises for guests that venture down the Black River. Could this hint that Alton Towers plan to add a special overlay for Scarefest, of an overlay of the dungeons? Possibility. I think that would be great. You know, it's a new attraction for the resort. I love the Dungeons brand, and it definitely could definitely make it look better for Scarefest this year with an added overlay on that attraction. Now, going on to the pricing of the dungeons, they have increased it by a £1 price difference, meaning tickets will cost you £8.50 to enter the Alton Towers dungeons during Scarefest. So that may hint that we may see a special overlay of the Alton Towers dungeons for Scarefest. Also making a return for 2019 is Subspecies The End Games. Now, I've got a lot to say about this, and I'm not going to go into too much detail surrounding this maze, as if you listened to my review or watched the video review that I did on YouTube on the Attractions Guide channel, I didn't like Subspecies. I think it was it was crap last year. It was definitely, I felt like last year was its time. Its times was definitely up. But obviously not, because Alton Towers have decided to bring it back again. Now, before you guys jump on at me and say, oh, well, these mazes cost money, and these mazes, to bring a new maze, it costs a lot of money for set design and stuff like that. I know. I'd rather have done without the scare maze, to be honest. I'd rather have just removed one and put all the money into Terror of the Towers, the attic. Because Subspecies, for me, it opened in 2015, and we're still seeing it, so I'm not a fan. I think last year I went through that 4 or 5 times, and every single experience that I had was awful. It was just not what it used to be, and it's a maze that's definitely been let go over the previous couple of years. It was absolutely top quality in 2015 when that maze opened. 2016 was okay. 2017, crap. And 2018, even worse. I remember recalling going through and seeing people on the actors on the mobile phones and just chatting to each other. So they're just absolutely awful. And I'm quite gutted that they're bringing that maze back. Now, I do understand it does cost money to bring new attractions and stuff like that, but I'm sorry, but that's just a god-awful decision to make in terms of bringing that back. It's just a dreadful, dreadful, dreadful decision. But I'm not going to go into detail about that. Also, we have the return of Project 42. Project 42 debuted on the lineup last year in 2018 in the former Nemesis Subterra building. I absolutely enjoyed myself when I went through Project 42. It was a fantastic maze, well themed, well thought out, and I'm not surprised they're bringing it back because it is only in its second year of operation, and a lot of work has been going on the exterior of the building. As I just mentioned, a lot of work has been going on the exterior from what we can see on social media of the building of Nemesis Subterra for Project 42. So I'm not surprised that maze is coming back on this year's lineup, and I can't wait to experience it once again. Also, we see the return of Altonville Mine Tour's Legend of the Skin Snatchers. Now, I'm not going to fanboy about this maze too much because I've developed quite a bit of a soft spot for this maze. I absolutely love it. I'm glad it's coming back. Altonville Mine Tours opened in 2016, so I'm glad they're bringing it back, and I can't wait to go through it again. There might be a lot of contradictions about that, and people might be saying, oh, well, why are they bringing it back? Why are they bringing it back? I think it is a great decision to bring Altonville Mine Tours back because it's a fantastic attraction. So that sees 3 mazes going inside the towers once again for this year's Scarefest event. And it's only July, but we can only start looking at getting excited for the spooky season, because the spooky season is one of my favourite times of year, and we love visiting theme park and scare events, and definitely Scarefest. So I certainly can't wait to experience all these mazes, apart from Subspecies, but I will experience it for the Scarefest event this year. I'm not happy about them bringing it back, as I've mentioned, but hey ho, let's move on. Unfortunately, this year, House of Monsters will not be returning. A few days ago, a sticker on the exterior sign of House of Monsters states that it will be returning for 2020. Does this suggest that Cloud Cuckoo Land will be getting redeveloped? So, House of Monsters opened back in 2016, and every time I've experienced House of Monsters, I've come out laughing. It was a fantastic filler attraction for the younger ones. It was an upcharged attraction, bear that in mind, at an additional cost of £5. Now, I think that is why they brought Darkest Depth, because that is also an upcharged attraction of £5 too. So maybe they've brought that because House of Monsters isn't opening until next year. So that could suggest that we will see a redevelopment of Cloud Cuckoo Land. I will be talking in further detail about that in just a few moments. This year, Scarefest is due to take place on the 5th and 6th of October, 12th and 13th, and 18th, all the way through till the 3rd of November. Prices for mazes as follows. Tickets for individual mazes are priced at £8. 3 maze combi ticket for £20, which includes Subspecies, The End Games, Altonville Mine Tours and Project 42. The Attic is only a single upcharged attraction with a purchase price of £8 and Darkest Depth with an upcharge of £5. Annual pass discount is yet to be confirmed on this. As I've stated, the dungeons during Scarefest will be slight increased price of £8.50. More news regarding Scarefest as we get it. So as of the date recording, it is the 10th of July. I will be visiting Phantasialand for the first time on the 15th. I can't wait for Phantasialand, to be honest. It's my first ever time visiting. So expect lots of content for the YouTube channel and a possibility of a live on location podcast from Phantasialand in Germany. Now we fly out on Monday the 15th of July. We'll be spending 3 days there. I will be purchasing an annual pass for Phantasialand, which is very beneficial for a 3-day trip there because the price for 2 days is 60 something euros for 2 days, and obviously a third day would be meaning that you'd pay 50 euros. So the annual pass is priced at 89 euros on the day, so that's definitely the way forward for us. Some future trips coming up, we're in the pipeline of working out at the moment, would be a possibility trip to Wallaby Holland. Wallaby Park would be a very good trip for us because of the new Untamed. Wallaby is a park that I've always wanted to go to. You know, they've got Lost Gravity and obviously the new Untamed ride, which is the new RMC, Rocky Mountain Construction Coaster. I've never been on an RMC, so I definitely want to get out there and get myself onto Untamed. So there's a possibility of a trip to Wallaby Holland at some point during the year until before the season's out, and a possibility of a trip to Tato Park in Ireland. Now, Tato Park is home to the Cuchulainn coaster, which I really want to get out and ride. A few of my friends in the group have already been there, and they said it's quite a good coaster, so I must definitely get myself out to Ireland at some point to ride the Cuchulainn coaster. Obviously, future trips, we've got Alton Towers planned up in the next coming months and weeks and whatever we do. Because I've got an annual pass, obviously, I can go and visit these parks whenever I get some free time. I will be doing a trip to Thorpe Park and Chessington at some point in this later this year, but I'm very busy at work at the moment, so it's as of when I can get to these parks. Trying to find the time can prove quite difficult at times. So yeah, that's our future plans and trips for the rest of 2019. I did release a video on the YouTube channel before the season started to reveal my plans for the year and what I'll be doing for the 2019 season. On to today's main topic in the podcast. Now, I'm looking at some show notes here that I've written prior to recording this podcast, just so I'm factually correct and don't make myself look like a complete idiot. So, the main feature that I wanted to discuss about, and you may ask why I'm discussing this, because this podcast is very Alton Towers related, and this in no way is a permanent basis where it's an Alton Towers podcast, because that's not what I'm about. I'm an open kind of person in terms of other parks as well as Alton Towers, even though Alton Towers is my favourite park. is the magic dead? You might wonder, what do I mean? Back when I used to visit as a child, maybe when I was 6 or 7, when it used to be owned by the Two Swords Group, the Two Swords Group was very big on where the magic never ceases and the magical place of Alton Towers. That was what it was known as. To us guys, it was known as the Disneyland of the United Kingdom, basically. You know, it was a magic place where you left all your worries and troubles at the gates, and you could go and they were very big on the magic side of things. And obviously, you could leave your troubles at the gates, especially, you know, I used to visit once a year when I was around about 6 or 7, when I was still back in primary school and then in high school. And then, obviously, I got my annual pass. I think I got my first annual pass 2010. 2011 maybe. And that's when I started visiting, you know, 20 odd times a year. I used to go every weekend when I just got my annual pass. Because why the hell not? And you may say, well, it's expected. The more you visit a place, the less appreciative of you know that you become. But I still appreciate Alton Towers for everything that it delivers. I still love the park, and I always will. It'll definitely hold a special place in my heart because it was the birth of getting me into coasters, and you know I wouldn't have visited the likes of Leesburg and other theme parks across the country if it wasn't for Alton Towers. So I definitely have that to thank. But over the tenure that I've been visiting, I've noticed a slight decrease in the park, as probably a lot of you who used to visit when you was a kid and still do now will understand to appreciate that Alton Towers was once a highly magical place. You know, they had Adventureland. I mean, albeit it only housed, I think it was the Dragon Flyer? Oh God, that was I don't know if it was called that. It was the little dragon ride that was in the in Adventureland. So I just had to pause it there just while I did a bit of a research because I made myself look like an absolute numpty whilst I was doing that. So it was actually called the Beastie, and it was located just next to Spinball Wizard in Adventureland. It was a Pinfari Coaster Super Dragon MD31 with a top speed of 17 miles an hour. So it was actually it had multiple locations at the park before finding its home in Adventureland before its closure in 2010. It was first located at the Talbot Centre, then Festival Park, then Thunder Valley, Forbidden Valley, and then it found its last home, which was Adventureland, and closed in 2010. That for me, it was fantastic. You know, so it was great for kids. It usually used to go around the circuit twice because the length of that coaster wasn't. I mean, the length of the coaster was 133 metres with a speed of 17 miles an hour and a height of 4 metres. So it was a great attraction. And I need to source a POV at some point for that because it was actually an alright ride. And a lot of people will be turning around now saying, oh, but it's a kid's ride. Yeah, but that's what brings memories back, you know. I mean, it was still there, standing but not operating when it closed in 2010 and didn't actually get removed until 2013. So every time I used to go on Spinball Wizard, I used to see it just standing there. And I was like, wow, you know, absolutely crazy. But hey-ho, that ride got pulled down, and obviously they had a complete redevelopment of the area. You know, CBeebies Land took over, and obviously Spinball Wizard's still there as we speak. But yeah, you know, it used to be a very, very magical place. Old MacDonald's Farmyard used to be a great one that I used to love going inside of. Even when I was, like, early teens, I mean, Old MacDonald's Farmyard's definitely far better than what CBeebies Land is now. I think I've been in that area twice since it opened. You know, they used to have Ribena Berry Bish Bash, the boat ride, and now it's completely different, and I don't like going in there because I just feel uncomfortable because there's that many kids about, and it's mainly a kids part of the park anyway. Cloud Cuckoo Land's another one. You know, when I was a child, it used to be Talbot Street, then Land of Make Believe, then Craig Street, and then obviously what we know it as now of Cloud Cuckoo Land. Cloud Cuckoo Land was another area that used to be, it used to have a lot of people going into, and the atmosphere used to be really good. And then since the closure of Ice Age and the 4D cinema and Twirling Toadstool, that part of the park is the one that needs more development on. And obviously with with what we found out about the closure of House of Monsters for this year's Scarefest event, maybe we might see a redevelopment for 2020 of that area, because it definitely needs it. Another thing that I want to mention about Alton Towers is the food facilities. I think the food facilities at Alton Towers are quite poor now. You know, you used to have McDonald's, and then it went to Burger King, and you had KFC and Pizza Hut. They used to be great, and I'm all for in-house making food companies, you know, like Burger Kitchen and stuff like that, but they're never going to compete with the likes of McDonald's and Burger King. They used to be fantastic, albeit you didn't get annual pass discount, which was quite annoying, but the fact that you still managed to, you know, you had proper food instead of some of the stuff that they serve up now. It's crap. It's just utter crap. And I might seem a little bit egotistical, very opinionated about this, but it's because I've been visiting Alton Towers for a long time. Alton Towers was a very magical place, as I keep saying, and I kind of miss that magic factor. I mean, I go to Towers 20 odd times a year. Last year was quite less for me, but no, you watch past documentaries regarding Alton Towers, the story of Alton Towers or the Magic Factory. They was very big on creating that magic. Even one of the adverts used to say, "Who creates the magic? We do." It was very big on making it a magical place, and now it's not like that anymore. If you have an opinion on that, then I'd like to hear it, because obviously, if you still think it's a magic place to go, I would very much like to hear your opinions regarding that, and you can certainly drop me an email down. Drop me an email. My email and stuff will be in the description below in the show notes. And you know what? I might include it in a future episode that comes up. Because at the end of the day, I'm one of them types of people that likes listening to people's opinions. I mean, also going on to the empty areas of the park whilst I'm here. Cloud Cuckoo Land, as I've already mentioned. Ripsaw. Now, when they removed Ripsaw out of Forbidden Valley, it wasn't long until a HB Leisure game took over, and then it was a show for a short while, and then I think it still is a HB Leisure thing now. I'm not too sure about that. Don't quote me on that, because I don't pay any attention to it anymore. Ripsaw was a good ride, and obviously they decided to get rid of it. Ripsaw was a Huss top spin. Top scan, whatever it is, and it was a good attraction. They got rid of it and didn't replace it. Now, I know you might yet again turn around to me and say, but replacing rides costs money. If Ripsaw didn't have anything wrong with it, don't remove it in the first place. It's as simple as that. If it is costing too much money, remove it. And that's obviously what it could have been. They didn't remove it for no reason. Although I think Ripsaw did go to another theme park. From what I can remember, it did transfer onto another theme park. Whether that's still operating, still operating now to this day, I don't know. But I did hear rumours that there was a possibility of Ripsort moving on to another park. But that would be me just kind of clutching at straws there. I'll have to do a little bit of research on that one. They dismantled it back in, I think it was 2016. Then obviously they put the game stall in by HB Leisure, and then obviously to this day it's a bit bland. That part of the park is very bland, and that's what's happening with Forbidden Valley. It's it's going to I don't know. It's going down the docks basically. They closed the Flume. The Flume was a good ride. I mean, for granted, Alton Towers doesn't have that many water rides. Who needs water rides in the UK when we don't really have the nice weather for them? And obviously they replaced it with Wicker Man, which is a fantastic GCI coaster. It's a family coaster for granted, but very well thought out, and it's definitely one of my favourites, Alton Towers. So Alton Towers can do it. They can remove rides and then replace them. Obviously, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory closed, and then it was quite a while until something else went in its place. But now, this year, saw the welcome of the Alton Towers Dungeon. So they're definitely on the right path, Alton Towers. I bet I've got a lot of people here now that are saying, what do I know? I don't. I just have an opinion, which we're all entitled to. But yeah, I know I've rambled on a little bit during this podcast, but this topic is something that I'm very, very passionate about, and I won't go on to bore you any longer with my opinions regarding this. So if you do have an opinion regarding the magic of Alton Towers, drop me an email and I will include them in the next podcast. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. We've just started up. We've moved on from the attractions guide now. We've moved on from being that type of channel where it's all based around news and getting the first things out there. We're now just mainly a podcasting channel. You can listen to this on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. We will put ourselves onto more publishing sites as of when we can, but we're starting off with 3 main ones at the moment, and then we're going to progress, look at getting some guests onto the show, do some interviews, and have a good time whilst doing it. Like I said, if you actually want to be a part of the podcast, drop me an email below, and we can ramble on about anything you like for as long as you like. Thank you very much for listening to the first episode of the Loop podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.